The Kyle Rittenhouse case continues to draw out, well, I don't know if explosive is the right word, but details. And I want to discuss the Rittenhouse case, but kind of in the context of the biblical parable of the Good Samaritans. Seems like a parable that has nothing to do with Rittenhouse, but I think it does. Now, as the parable goes, the Good Samaritan is a kind of big-hearted guy, and he's coming down the road and he sees the victim who has been beaten up by thieves, and he takes care of him, and he provides first aid, and he helps him to his feet, and he helps him to get back, in a sense, to normal. And the Good Samaritan is commended for his for providing this kind of solicitude, this kind of aid. And it's a morally, unambiguous case. Who can be, against the Good Samaritan? But here's an interesting conundrum, kind of a thought experiment, and it puts moral reasoning to the test. What if the Good Samaritan had come early, when the thieves were beating up the victim? What should the Good Samaritan do? Should he say, oh, you know what, I'm the Good Samaritan. I can't get involved. I'm not going to use violence against violence. I'm going to wait until they finish beating the guy up and then run away. Then I will move in and do my Good Samaritan thing. Well, obviously, this would be ridiculous. If the Good Samaritan has the ability and the means, he should intervene and prevent the violence from occurring in the first place. Now, this brings me to Kyle Rittenhouse. We're having a little bit of a family debate, by the way. Not me and Debbie. It's actually with Debbie's daughter, my stepdaughter, Juliana. And, she's at Texas A&M, and she's, picking up from the culture. Kyle Rittenhouse is a bad guy. Kyle Rittenhouse is a vigilante. I mean, she's echoing really what has been said about the Rittenhouse case for a whole year. And just give you a couple of examples of what we're talking about. Here's Ayanna Pressley. A 17-year-old white supremacist domestic terrorist drove across state lines armed with an AR-15. Similarly, Ilhan Omar, a domestic terrorist, executed 2 people. Blah, blah, blah. So this is the mood. Let's remember, to continue, Facebook shut down Kyle Rittenhouse's page. PayPal and GoFundMe prevented him from raising money for his defense. So there was a coordinated effort to demonize this kid, make him into the bad guy. In fact, while Republicans sort of put their distance, the GOP stayed away, even the NRA stayed away. So this kid has been, in a sense, going through this virtually alone. Now, the point that Juliana is making is why was he there? Why was he there, guys? Why he didn't even have to be there? Why did he doesn't even come from that state? He's not from Kenosha. Well, I mean, we grant that. And I suppose it could be said in her defense that, if I were Kyle Rittenhouse's parents, I would be reluctant to send him. He's only 17 years old at the time. And it would seem to be sort of asking for trouble. On the other hand, and this is important, the simple truth of it is that if you're living in a society, in this case, Kenosha, Wisconsin, where you have looters and marauders, and by the way, everybody who asks, why was Kyle Rittenhouse there, never asks, they don't seem to think about, why were the looters there? Why were the rioters there? Why were the arsonists there? They weren't from Kenosha. They all came from other places. They came, many of them, from out of state. They came to cause the trouble that Kyle Rittenhouse was there to sort of tamp down. And the truth of it is that if you're living in a sort of lawless environment where the authorities have sort of backed off, the authorities have stepped down either because they don't want to get involved or they don't have the means, the ability to stop what's going on, and then I would say that in that kind of environment, we do need people like Kyle Rittenhouse. And we may not need 17-year-olds to do it, but we do need people who are going to protect businesses, are going to protect lives, are going to protect the safety of citizens. Now, as we go into this case, and by the way, guys, I'm going to be doing tomorrow, this is at 7:30 on Locals, I'm going to go into this case like nobody's business, getting into some of the details of it because they're eye-opening at every level. Here I'm going to touch on it because they're too juicy to leave out. To summarize for people who were born yesterday, Kyle Rittenhouse is accused of gunning down 3 people, killing 2, Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, and wounding 1, Gage Grosskreutz, who has actually been testifying in the trial. Now, the remarkable thing about this is I have to commend the video journalists who have been covering this. And these are conservatives. And the simple truth of it is these video journalists, in my view, are going to save this kid's life. Why? Because they have put and recorded, this is what actually happened. Because if it wasn't for them, the prosecution would be lying through its teeth. The detectives would be lying through their teeth. And I say this because they are doing it now. They're lying. The only problem is that they have a video that is there to refute them. By the way, this just shows you the importance of the video evidence. It also shows you really why in January 6th, the government is holding on to the video. They're not releasing the 14,000 hours of video for exactly this reason. It blows up their narrative, exposes their lies. They're hoping that Obama judges and Clinton judges will basically, crucify these people and do it based upon selective snippets that the government has put. So it's all a frame up. The whole thing is a fraud. Now let's look at how the fraud is playing out in the Rittenhouse case. In the Rittenhouse case, you've got on the video a bunch of people, leftists, Antifa types, chasing Rittenhouse. That's like obvious from the video. You can see it, right? And here comes a detective, a guy named Adatamian, and he goes, no, they're really not chasing Rittenhouse. The way I see it, they're merely running in the same direction. Now, this is, if you didn't have a video, you'd be like, oh yeah, man, the detective was there, he saw it, But this guy is obviously a dirty cop. There's no question about it, and we've had dirty cops for a long time. The only difference now is the dirty cop is busted because of the video. Now, let's turn to the medic, and my stepdaughter Juliana was like, this guy's a medic. She's like, Mom, he shot a medic. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about this guy, Grosskreutz. Yes, he is a medic. He's also a felon. He's also a mental patient. And he's also a medic with a gun. Why is a medic, A, carrying a gun, B, loading his gun, C, pointing the loaded gun at Kyle Rittenhouse? That's when Kyle Rittenhouse shot him. So those were the circumstances that led to this. Now, this medic goes up to testify, and his testimony has an element of comedy, because he says that at one point, he says, I wasn't trying to hurt Rittenhouse. In fact, he says he was trying to help Rittenhouse. He goes, the reason that he was running toward Rittenhouse and the reason that he drew his gun is he was trying to prevent Rittenhouse from harming either other people or himself. So this guy presents himself as he was not up to any trouble on the scene at all. Yes, right. Now, here's a little clip, and this is just a short to give you a feel of what it's like inside the courtroom of this guy Grosskreutz being cross-examined by the defense. Listen.
Okay, so when you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
There you go. Boom. There you have it. In a nutshell, and the context of this couldn't be more clear, this guy Grosskreutz at one point did put his hands up. And no, Rittenhouse didn't shoot him then. It's only when he reached for his loaded gun and pointed it directly at Rittenhouse, that's when Rittenhouse shot him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is you could almost call it textbook definition of self-defense. So if there's any justice in the world, and if there's any justice in that courtroom, Kyle Rittenhouse will walk. And will walk because he did really nothing wrong, as far as I can see, that day. He was, in some respects, the Good Samaritan.